Hello! Yes, my hair is wet. I just got out of the shower and I wasn't planning on filming, but I was suddenly motivated. So here I am, and I'm just too lazy to blow dry my hair. It's also like 9 o'clock at night. I'm just not going to do that. I put on eyeliner for you. It's like as far as I'm going to go right now. I am here to do my February wrap-up. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. I believe I read 14 or 15 books in February. It's a lot. For a lot of them, there are either reviews coming up or I've already done a review, so I'll put those links below when they are ready, and you can go watch those if you are interested in learning more about any of these. First, I read 4 graphic novels this month. They are Fables, Volume 2, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 2, the first volume of Rat Queens, and the first volume of Pretty Deadly. I'm going to have a video wrap-up of all the comics I read in January and February where I talk about them all a little bit more in detail, and that is already posted, maybe, or will be in the next week or so. I also read a few fantasy novels for Fantasy February with the BookTube Reading Buddies. I did like a review of all 3 of these in one video, and again, either that's already up or it's going to be up shortly. I'm not really sure what my uploading schedule is looking like these days. Sorry. So I will talk about these a little bit more in detail then, but for now I will tell you that I read Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is the first book in her Farseer trilogy. I also read Mistborn: The Final Empire. This is book 1 in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. And lastly, I read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Next, I read a few things for #ReadSoulIt. Unfortunately, I wasn't as good about doing the photo a day challenge as I wanted to be. Sorry, but I tried. I don't use Instagram that much, and I'm really bad at it. And I don't remember to do these things. I had a ton of fun with Read Soul It, so thanks to Dee Dee for organizing it. There were some absolutely incredible videos that people posted this month, so if you have not checked those out yet, I believe that Dee Dee over at Frenchie D has a whole playlist of them for you to check out. I learned a lot. I discovered a lot of new authors that I'm looking to read in the future, and it was a really, really great month. But I personally read Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. I have a lot of feelings about this book. I posted a discussion video in which I touch on some of those feelings. I did give this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was absolutely amazing. Toni Morrison is incredible. And if you haven't read anything by her yet, just go do it. I also read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. I have no idea why I've never read this. I have no idea why I was never made to read this in school. This was beautiful. It was really heartbreaking. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars in the end. And again, this is a must-read. If you haven't read this already, you should definitely do so. And then I read this tiny little adorable thing. Can you see how tiny and adorable this is? Look. Look. See how tiny it is? It's so cute. I saw this in my bookshop the other day when I was in there, and it's the text version of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's We Should All Be Feminist, which is her TED Talks, which if you haven't seen or read, please go do both of those things immediately. It's absolutely incredible. She is amazing. I love listening to her speak. Oh god, it's so good. So anyway, this is just an essay format for TED Talks, which I had already watched, but I went back and read it. You do lose a lot of the humor in essay form. So like I said, I recommend you either read it and then watch the video, or watch the video and then read it. But it's the same thing, essentially. And I'm just so glad I have this tiny, adorable thing. It's so cute. And then as to my kind of monthly challenge that I have for myself, where I'm trying to read a classic, a short story collection, and a book of nonfiction every month, I did not really get to a classic this month. There was too much going on in February with Fantasy February and Read Soul It, and I really wanted to participate in those projects, and the classics will still be waiting for me when I'm ready. So, and there's a big one coming up in March, so don't worry. There will be classics. But I did read 2 short story collections. I read American Innovations by Rivka Galchen. She is a Canadian author, and this is her first collection of short stories. She's the author of a novel called Atmospheric Disturbances, which I've never read. I have been wanting this since I heard about it before it was even published. It was just published in 2014. This is the hardback edition. And these were interesting. They were kind of almost magical realism-esque. They were very bizarre. I'll link my Goodreads review down below because I'm not going to do a review on this, but I do go into more detail in my Goodreads review. But I ended up giving this whole collection 3 out of 5 stars in the end. Next, I read Can't and Won't by Lydia Davis. So this is my first collection of Lydia Davis stories. Also, I read this in 2 days, and here's why. A lot of her stories are more like vignettes. Some of them are just single sentences. I mean, they're really short, some of them. Some of them are a little bit longer. And I am going to go back to Lydia Davis. I'm going to read more to Lydia Davis, but I'm going to read some of her earlier work because I wasn't a huge fan of this. And a lot of the bits and a lot of the stories were very touching and gave me a lot to think about. There's a series of stories in here that she's rewritten from Gustave Flaubert's letters, which is interesting. If you didn't know, Lydia Davis is also a translator, and she has translated Madame Bovary. But I expected to really, really like Lydia Davis, and it fell a little flat for me. So I'm going to go back and read some of her earlier work because I just think I need to spend some more time with her. Then I technically read 5 pieces of nonfiction this month, if you include I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings and We Should All Be Feminists. I also read Men Explain Things to Me by Rebecca Solnit. I read this towards the beginning of the month, and quite frankly, I can't even really remember what its main points were. I know Holly at Library at the Edge of the World really, really loved this. I liked about half of the essays. The other half, I feel like they weren't presenting me with anything new in terms of my own personal feminism. I felt like it was nothing that I hadn't heard before, and while I believe that it's important, I felt like she could have put, I don't know, a bit more of a personal spin on her ideas. And also, this edition, I found like a few typos and things that I felt like were really poorly proofread and edited, and that always really disappoints me. So I feel like maybe if the book had been better produced and the essays had gone a little bit into more depth, I would have liked this a lot more, but as it stands, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I also read Relish, My Life in the Kitchen by Lucy Nisley. Lucy Nisley is the daughter of foodies. Her mother is a chef. And this is a graphic memoir about her kind of relationship with food and how she grew up around food. And each chapter kind of focuses on something different. And each chapter also ends with a illustrated recipe, which I really like. Crazy thing about this book, Lucy Nisley and her mom actually lived, I don't know where they live now, but when she was growing up, they actually lived very, very close to where I grew up in upstate New York. For example, one of the farms they worked on is where I used to go apple picking and like pumpkin picking and strawberry picking when I was growing up. So that was bizarre. I had no idea about that going into this book. So this had a very personal connection for me. Overall, though, I gave it 3 stars. I read a lot of food writing because I work in restaurants, and I just didn't think that, I thought that this was really sweet and really well done, and it was a fun medium to present food writing through. I wasn't a huge fan of the illustrations other than the recipes. Like, it's pretty cartoony, which is great for if you like that. It's just not my thing. And then last book I have is Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life from Dear Sugar. This is by Cheryl Strayed, the author of Wild, which I have not read. And it is a collection of advice columns that she wrote anonymously as this character Sugar for an online magazine. And I went into it a little bit hesitantly. I'm not really into advice columns. I'm not really into self-help books. But this blew my mind. I could not stop reading it. Cheryl Strayed is so frank and so wonderful. And it felt partly like a memoir and partly like self-help, but like the most brutal, honest, and straightforward kind of self-help. Like none of that like, if you envision it, you can do it bullcrap that I'm not into. I'm sorry. I know that works for some people. I'm just too pessimistic to do it. But this was so amazing. I highly recommend this. I talked about it in my Snow Day recommendations video. And since finishing it, my feelings about it have not changed. I still highly recommend it. So yeah, that is all of the a million things I read in February. I have no idea how I got this much reading done this month because we have been remodeling the house. Yeah, I have no idea. I will be back soon with my February TBR and also with those review videos that I discussed. How was your February? Did you have any really standout reads? What was your favorite book you read in February? I would love to hear about it in the comments, and I will see you all soon. Bye.